The holidays are here, it's time to celebrate! Time to sit on a couch and put on a holiday classic like a Charlie Brown Christmas or Home Alone, right? Well, not this time. No, instead I decided for whatever reason to make a list of the 12 worst holiday movies of all time and then talk about each of them one by one. Every day from now until Christmas, I will be going down the list of terrible winter holiday films and specials from least worst to most worst. A kind of 12 days of horrible holiday hellspawns, since not all of these are Christmas movies. Some of these are genuinely atrocious and some of the worst things I've ever seen. And even the less bad ones are still completely awful. So I hope you're ready to indulge in my pain and suffering. Better than having to watch these for yourself. Let's go! Alright, let's see what's up first.
Today, I'm going to be using the tenderest cut of the panther, the loin.
Oh, damn it. Oh yeah, you know things are bad when the infamous Star Wars Holiday Special is what we're starting the list with. Out of all the crap that's come out of the Star Wars franchise, this is the one thing everyone can agree is dreadful. It's so awful, George Lucas himself said that if he had the time and a hammer, he'd track down every copy of the special and smash it, and well, I can't blame him. The plot, if you can even call it that, is basically that Han Solo and Chewbacca are going to visit the latter's family for Life Day, whatever that is. No, seriously, we never find out what Life Day actually is, but if anything we see in the special is anything to go by, I don't think I want to know. But we're not actually with the characters we all know and love much, no. Most of the special is spent with Chewie's family, who are Wookiees who don't speak English. And there are no subtitles. See the problem here? Who the hell thought it was a good idea to make a bunch of Wookiees the main characters and not have subtitles so we can understand them? There are other characters who show up, but aside from Art Carney of all people actually visiting the Wookiees, most of them appear in in-universe shows, which leads to the next big problem. The special keeps jumping all over the place with no flow whatsoever. We go from hologram acrobatics to a cooking show starring a four-armed Harvey Korman, to a 70s styled music video, to an instruction video starring a robot Harvey Korman, to a goddamn musical number with B. Arthur as the singing bartender and Harvey Korman, again, as a guy with a volcano for a head. What do any of these have to do with the story? Nothing at all. The only thing people kind of like is the cartoon segment that actually has the main heroes from the movie, even if Han Solo looks like he melted.
What happened?
Also, this was the first appearance of Boba Fett, where he has more dialogue here than he has in the rest of the movies. So, that's kinda neat.
They are here, friend. No lower life form is worth going hungry for, friend. Follow me, friend. I said stay, friend. You must leave quickly, friend. We'll meet again, friend.
I suppose the completely bizarre nonsense does make the Star Wars Holiday Special funny bad, which is why it's only number 12, but make no mistake, it's still horrible in every way, with basically no redeeming qualities aside from laughing at how terrible it is. Trust me, a lot of the later entries on this list fail at even being that, and we have 11 more to go. I hope you prepared lots of eggnog, because trust me, it's all gonna go downhill from here.
Guy again.
Ooh boy. Similar to the Star Wars Holiday Special, We Wish You Eternal Christmas is a cash grab abomination made solely for the purpose of making a quick buck off of fans. And also, similarly, it's kind of hilarious for that reason. For starters, well, just look at the turtles. These are the absolute worst costumes they've ever had, and that includes the Coming Out of Our Shells tour. They can't close their mouths, their eyes are always set in that dead-looking stare, and their movements are just so awkward all the time. I feel bad for the people inside those costumes. The story's pretty simple. The turtles want to get a gift from Master Splinter. Except that clearly they couldn't stretch it to fit 21 minutes, so they just have a bunch of songs that only vaguely relate to anything. Some of them are covers of actual Christmas songs, like We Wish You a Merry Christmas and The 12 Days of Christmas, and some of them are just the worst things ever. What? You don't remember these absolute classics like Rap Rap and Gotta get a gift for Splinter. Also in the special, the Turtles are Jamaican sometimes for no reason at all. Especially during the Deck the Halls cover. Like, why? During the 12 Days of Christmas cover, Splinter's actor forgets his lines on camera, and they actually used the take.
12 April only autographs. Never catch up now. 8, no, 7. Where am I? 5 video games made it.
Lastly, after the last song finishes playing over the credits, the special just keeps going, but there's no footage, so it's just the Turtles talking over literally nothing for like 30 seconds.
You ever tried to go out and buy a sneaker with 2 toes? The lady almost laughed me out of Macy's, man. Come on, Leo.
Hey, you know, I really like that Donatello watch. That sold like hotcakes, like totally happening this Christmas.
And yet, all this stupidity is why I watch the special every year. It's so pathetic and nonsensical that I'm just laughing my head off at like every scene, even at the awful songs. Like, if you're in the mood to watch something that's so bad it's perfect this holiday season, I actually recommend you check We Wish You Eternal Christmas out. It's up on YouTube, it costs you literally nothing, you have nothing to lose except maybe your sanity. We won't be in so bad it's good territory for much longer, so you better enjoy yourselves while you can.
Just look at that deluxe assortment of nuts. Soon I will capture them all and command them to work in my cheese mines.
No joke, The Nuttiest Nutcracker might just be the most bonkers movie I've ever seen. In case the title didn't tip you off somehow, this is an adaptation of the classic Nutcracker ballet, in the loosest terms imaginable, because I'm pretty sure the ballet didn't have a Confederate peanut, Jim Belushi as the Mouse King with a Garfield stomach, and this kinda anime-looking prince voiced by Cam Clark.
Don't give up hope, my friends!
Did you expect any of that? Because I didn't. If you're wondering why the animation looks like VeggieTales on crack, it's because they used the same animation software, and it was made in 1999 for a budget of over $84,000. It's a step above Food Fight, but not that big of a step. While that explains why the visuals look so bad, it doesn't explain why everything else is completely off its rocker. You know, I've watched this thing like 3 times, and I still have no idea what the hell is going on here. The story of the Nutcracker is there, I guess, but it's buried underneath a whole bunch of, well, I don't even know. Most of the characters are nuts because, get it, Nutcracker? But then why would they have a Nutcracker as their ruler? That would be like having a bunch of mice being ruled by a sentient mousetrap. There's some musical numbers here because Nutcracker was a ballet, but every one of them sucks.
I'm the Prince of Provolone. I'm the King of Camembert.
Tchaikovsky must be rolling around in his grave right now. Something resembling a plot attempts to crawl its way out of the slop with our main character, Marie. She starts off the movie wishing Christmas would go away forever because she sucks.
I just wish it would go away forever.
And then she shrinks down to the size of the nuts because magic, I guess, and she has to get the Christmas star back from Reginald the Mouse King or else Christmas will be ruined forever. And, that's basically it. Because everything else is just pure insanity. Oh, and also the Mouse King has the hots for Marie because... I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know.
You're mad.
Mad with passion.
But you know what? The voice acting isn't too bad. I already mentioned Jim Belushi and Cam Clark, but we also got Debbie Derryberry, Cheech Marin, Tress MacNeille, Jeff Bennett, and Jim Cummings. You know, great voice talent all around that is completely wasted here. I have no idea how $84,000 was enough to afford all of them, but I'm at least glad they're able to make this movie a little more bearable. You know, kind of like the last entry, I actually kind of recommend you watch The 90s Nutcracker, if only because this is one of those movies that's so insanely off its wall that it has to be seen to be believed. Yeah, I'd much rather have a crazy bad movie than a boring bad movie, and, well, calling The 90s Nutcracker crazy is quite the understatement. You might even say it's a little bit nutty. I never got into the Santa Claus movies. You know, the ones with the E at the end of Claus to make a terrible pun. The first two were fine, I guess, but barely worth talking about with how standard they feel. Fortunately, the Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause, is absolutely horrible, and that means there's stuff to rip apart. The plot of Tim Allen and Martin Short get some serious money for Christmas is that Jack Frost is jealous that he doesn't have a holiday of his own, so he tries to steal the role of Santa Claus from Tim Allen. And that's kind of it. They don't spend nearly as much time on the ramifications of Tim Allen's character never becoming Santa as you'd think. No, they instead focus on this movie's favorite activity, being a painfully unfunny comedy. I already think the first two weren't all that funny, but oh my god, the number of pure groaners the Escape Clause contains would have broken my brain if the rest of the entries on this list haven't already done that. Way too many of them have long-ass pauses after them, like there's supposed to be a laugh track, but because nobody's laughing, they just look awkward as hell. I get that being stupidly unfunny doesn't sound as bad as the last three spectacular trashter pieces, but when your movie's a comedy, my enjoyment is going to hinge on the humor, and since I can't think of even one joke that made me laugh, I feel like that justifies me disliking the Escape Clause more than crap like the Star Wars Holiday Special. Nobody looks like they want to be there, and as a result, nobody looks invested. Except for Jack Frost, who's maybe a little too happy to be there. Martin Short as an actor I know can be funny, but he just so rarely is, in my opinion at least. And Jack Frost might just be his most unfunny comedic role, period. Also, am I the only one who thinks he kinda looks like Virgil from Devil May Cry if you were made of plastic? This movie's dropping one whole spot just for making me compare Virgil to Martin Short's Jack Frost. I will say though, compared to the rest of the garbage on this list, The Escape Clause is probably the most competently made film on here. I mean, it functions, nothing breaks, I can hear what the characters are saying all the time, but like, that is such a low bar. And considering this is a movie that ends with Jack Frost being redeemed with a hug from a little girl, that is just sad. Why are there so many Home Alone movies? I know the first one's a classic, but are they actually profitable and beloved enough to warrant this many of them being made? Especially when they keep getting worse? Lost in New York isn't too bad, but I wouldn't touch the rest of the 39.5-foot pole, and that definitely includes the worst of them all, and the newest, Home Sweet Home Alone. First off, I'm confused. Is this supposed to be a reboot? It doesn't have a number in the title like the others, and it's about a completely different family, but Buzz shows up and he mentions Kevin, so is this a distant sequel? I don't know. The continuity is the least of this movie's problems. Our hero, in massive air quotes here, is Max, played by that kid from Jojo Rabbit. And for what it's worth, he's a pretty good kid actor, whose talent is unfortunately completely wasted thanks to an incompetent script. In a twist, the burglars this time are a mom and a dad, the Mackenzies, trying to retrieve a malformed doll that's apparently worth a lot of money? Sure movie, whatever you say. The issue comes in that they come across as way too sympathetic since they're just trying to provide for their family, which means the typical Home Alone slapstick just feels mean and unwarranted. Max, on the other hand, is a privileged, spoiled kid with no signs of being neglected or bullied like Kevin was, and so comes across as incredibly unlikable and borderline psychotic with how much misery he causes for the Mackenzies. I know people like to joke that Kevin is a psychopath, but like, seriously, this kid, like, almost actually seems like one with how much joy he gets out of tormenting them for, like, no reason. And this isn't even going to the other problems that plague the other Home Alone sequels. Unfunny jokes, lame slapstick, and repetition that would even make the Friday the 13th sequels blush. But honestly, there just isn't really anything more to say. Like, you watched one Home Alone movie, you've watched all of them, and if you're gonna watch one, just watch the first one. There's absolutely going to be more Home Alone films in the future, and I have absolutely no faith that they will get any better. Maybe they could set the next one in Australia, and have the kids send out poisonous spiders and snakes after the burglars, and maybe a box jellyfish or two. Hey, if you're gonna milk a formula to death, like the films already have. May as well at least shake it up a little bit. Can't hurt to try at least. Oh yeah, you knew this would be on here. You're probably wondering why this isn't even further down, considering how much everybody hates this movie, but I have my reasons. The best word to describe Christmas with the Cranks is unpleasant. We have now reached the point of the list where these movies have crossed the line from terrible to unbearable, and the sheer hatred Christmas with the Cranks reeks of is the main reason why. To start, welcome back to the list, Tim Allen! Yeah, it turns out that Santa Claus 3 isn't the worst Christmas movie he's been in. That would be this little gem. He plays Luther Crank, and he and his wife Nora, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, want to skip celebrating the holidays because they're sad their daughter can't be with them during Christmas because she's traveling to Peru. Sounds understandable, right? Well, not to their neighbors, because their solution to the Cranks' holiday blues is to constantly bother them and force them to participate in the festivities, of course. These people are so offended that the Cranks don't want to celebrate for a very good reason that they harass and ostracize them for the incredible offense of not wanting to have a Christmas party. Yeah, that completely justifies treating them like criminals, right? Dan Aykroyd's here too, and every scene he's in almost makes me want to take a swig of his crystal vodka just to forget them. Almost. Then again, it's not like the Cranks themselves are that much better. Their reason for not wanting to participate in the Christmas spirit is understandable, but they're just so terrible that all sympathy for them goes right out the window pretty quickly. Nora isn't the worst, I suppose, though she is pretty annoying with no funny lines or scenes. But Luther is such a self-centered prick that he makes me want to punch a hole in the TV whenever he shows up. Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis are pretty good actors, but none of their talent shines here. They're insufferable to watch together or separately in this movie. So, basically, every single character in this movie sucks, which makes for an agonizing experience the whole way through. The jokes aren't funny, the slapstick is somehow even lamer than Home Sweet Home Alone, and the final part of the movie, where it turns into a more traditional holiday film, feels completely unearned because of how horrible everybody is and how awful the rest of the movie was. You know, most of the internet considers this the worst holiday film ever made, but we're only halfway through the list. I said I have my reasons why this is further down, but it really just boils down to I hate everything else on this list even more. Yeah, it somehow gets even worse from here. What have I gotten myself into? Oh my god. You thought Christmas with the Cranks was unpleasant. I'll Be Home for Christmas eats the unpleasantness from Christmas with the Cranks for a morning snack. This movie sucks. It sucks a lot. And yet I feel not many people talk about it as much as the other movies on the list. So, if you'll allow me, I'm gonna tear this film a structurally superfluous new behind. I'll Be Home for Christmas is about this dumbass named Jake, played by, I'm sure somebody's favorite teen heartthrob from the 90s, Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Jake is the worst. He's a selfish, arrogant douchebag who is convinced to spend the holidays with his family, not out of kindness or holiday cheer, but because his father bribed him with a Porsche. And just like that, I already hate him. But oh no, some bullies dressed him up in a Santa outfit and dumped him in the middle of the desert because, I don't know, they want to kill him or something? And now he has to find his way back home. And all sorts of wacky hijinks ensue. Easily, the movie's biggest problem is just how horrible Jake is, and how his character development is minuscule and completely unearned. He spends most of the movie lying his ass off, manipulating others, and blows every legitimate chance he gets because of his stupidity. At least Luther Crank had some kind of underlying excuse for why he's an asshole, and it kinda sorta makes up for it by the end. Jake is just terrible for literally no reason, and does the absolute bare minimum to qualify for a character arc. But it's not like the other characters are that much better. Jake's girlfriend, Allie, cheats on him with another guy almost the second he leaves. Eddie the bully tries to flat out murder Jake, not that I'd be against that, and locks another kid in his locker for the holidays. We never see that kid again, so I'm gonna assume that he died. Jake's parents are complete pushovers, and everyone else just serves to add extra annoyances the plot doesn't need. Especially this awful truck driver with some of the worst acting I've seen since The Room. Of course, you have the combo platter of other crap we've already discussed in prior entries. Bad acting across the board, terrible jokes, poor slapstick, god-awful green screen. Oh, seriously, why do these driving scenes look so bad? And a plotting pace that kills kills any enjoyment even the most desperate viewers may try to squeeze out of it. Seriously, this movie takes forever to do anything of worth. There's almost no story at all, yet it still takes way too long for anything to happen. And the ending is just a blatant screw you to the audience, where Jake deliberately arrives 1 minute late to, I don't know, prove to his parents that he doesn't care about the car anymore? Except that they still give him the car because they're total morons. I realize I've been hammering this point into the ground, but since this is the core of the entire movie, I feel my hatred for Jake completely justifies this movie being worse than crap like Christmas with the Cranks or the Santa Claus 3. I'm really starting to miss Tim Allen. Heck, I'd even take an unfunny Martin Short or Dan Aykroyd at this point.
What a hangover.
When you hear the title, The Christmas Tree, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? If your answer is, a bunch of orphans latch onto a tree as their mom because the orphanage runner gambles their money away until Santa Claus blasts her with a bolt of lightning, I'm very sorry. We're back in the realm of animation, and I use the term animation very loosely. This is some of the stiffest 2D animation I've ever seen, with characters standing completely rigidly while their eyes just stare blankly into the middle distance. Everybody looks dead inside and sounds just as empty. No joke, The Christmas Tree has some of the worst voice acting of all time. I can kind of excuse the kids because they're clearly very young, with the little girl here sounding like she just learned how to talk.
Because they have special reindeer to pull it, and each one has its own special name.
Except this guy, what the heck, why is his voice all pitched up like that?
When I'm scared, I think about her branches like arms holding me.
But the adults just sound horrible. They've got no excuse. Everyone's heard the infamous,
"We come from the mares."
But that's only the tip of the iceberg. Judy sort of hovers between kind of trying and I just had way too much whiskey.
I've got an idea. Let's make Mrs. Hopewell more fun to be around.
Mrs. Mavilda is so loud that she peaks the microphone multiple times.
Pack your things right now! You're fired! I don't want to see your face another minute! Get out!
Whoever does the mayor's voice forgets exactly what voice he's doing partway through because he sounds like a completely different person during the finale.
I've got enough money here to get the children new clothes. And still some left for their Christmas presents. Don't worry about that, little one. Your tree, Mrs. Hopewell is going to be all right.
And the less said about the creepy Coca-Cola ad-looking Santa, the better. As for the plot, well, if you thought my summary was an exaggeration, you were mistaken because that is literally what happens. Mrs. Mavilda collects huge bags of money from the mayor, not specific payments, just bags of money that are supposed to help out the orphanage. But she just wastes it all by gambling it away.
Here goes the children's money again!
So the kids are pretty miserable and get attached to this pine tree, which they call Mrs. Hopewell. A woman named Judy comes to work at the orphanage and tries to make the children's lives better by telling them about Christmas. But once Judy gets in trouble with Mrs. Mavilda, her two kids decide to go to the North Pole to tell Santa because I guess Santa can help them with that? Except they don't make it because Baloo from the Jungle Book tries to eat them and the little girl falls off a cliff and dies. Except not really, she gets saved by Santa off screen somehow, I don't know. Then Mrs. Mavilda decides to cut down the tree with a chainsaw, and Judy and the kids form a wall around it, so Mrs. Mavilda sends her minion to, I guess, cut through them? Jeez, that's dark. But that's when Santa Claus shoots her with a bolt of lightning and decorates the tree, or decorates the space to the left of the tree. Yeah, the lights don't go there. And also gives the kids new clothes with some magic dust because he can do that. Yeah, this story is a total disaster. But honestly, the biggest problem with the Christmas Tree, and the reason it's so much lower than other train wrecks like We Wish You Eternal Christmas and The Nuttiest Nutcracker, is that it's boring. I summed up the story in, 30 seconds? So why the hell is this special over 40 minutes long? At least We Wish You Eternal Christmas is only 21 minutes. The animation is kind of funny bad for a little bit, but after staring at boring backgrounds with barely animated characters and dull colors for over half an hour, it stops being funny and starts being aggravating. Listen, the worst thing any movie can make me say is, when is this going to end? And the Christmas tree is a particularly bad offender in this regard. But even still, we all know this is not the worst animated Christmas movie of all time. Oh no, we'll be seeing that one next time.
You just got to go for another it.
Wow, what a shock. If someone's talking about terrible animated Christmas movies and the Christmas tree isn't ranked as the worst, then Rhapsody Street Kids Believe in Santa most likely is. I mean, just look at it. Look at it! This barely resembles animation. Everybody looks like dolls made out of Play-Doh. The characters can't actually sit down, so all sitting shots have to be filmed from the waist up so the models can just sink downwards to vaguely resemble sitting. This is what eating a sandwich looks like. This is what being chased by dogs looks like. This... well, I have no idea what the hell this is. Even worse, this mess somehow cost over $600,000 and came out in 2002. At least the Christmas tree and the Nuttiest Nutcracker were made in the 90s and for far cheaper. This level of quality is just unacceptable by any measure. The animation is absolutely the worst thing about Rhapsody Street Kids by a mile, but don't worry, the rest of it sucks too. The story is, I think, about learning to believe in Santa? I say I think because the story jumps around all over the place to follow several different characters, so there isn't really a cohesive story being told, with the Santa thing as the closest thing the movie has to a through line. Ricky, this walking blob of computer-generated slop over here, wants to give his childhood teddy bear to this mass of cotton balls with sticks in them named Nicole for reasons. But because she's an asshole with no redeeming qualities, she gets pissy at him and throws the bear in the trash. The rest of the movie is just stuff happening, with Nicole learning not to be the worst person ever, I guess, and also learning to believe in Santa because that's the title of the movie. And the other kids just existing for the sake of existing, I think. Smithy here has a sandwich that I guess is supposed to be like Linus's security blanket from Peanuts? But why? Why a sandwich? Like, if he's been carrying that thing around, that sandwich has got to be moldy as hell. Then again, maybe it is, and the animation is just looks so bad that I can't tell. Also, there's like a 4-minute song smack in the middle of the movie for like no reason. I know, like, yeah, Ricky raps throughout the movie, but like that's something he's doing in universe, and also the title of the movie is Rhapsody Street Kids.
Smithy's small and round, he's closest to the ground, he's nobody's fool, the coolest kid in school.
Nicole just has like her own song here for like no reason, other than I guess to remind us that she's voiced by Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
Look at me, look and you'll see the best kid in the world.
No, seriously, that's Belle's voice actress, Paige O'Hara, doing Nicole's voice. Like, the song is horrible, but, like, at least Paige's vocals make it less horrible. Actually, there's a lot of great voice actors in this movie. Like, some of my favorites, actually, like Mark Hamill, Jodie Benson, Gray Delisle, Deborah Wilson, who gives us this gem.
Christmas!
And also Nancy Cartwright, who for some reason has a producing credit. I am a little sympathetic to their situation. I mean, like, a paycheck is a paycheck. I'd happily be in garbage if I got paid. But it's pretty clear none of them want to be there. It's really easy to tell who's who, just based on the sound of their voice. You know, for what it's worth, the voice acting is the least worst part of Rhapsody Street Kids. Like, the voice direction isn't good at all, but at least my ears aren't bleeding the way my eyes are. Worst of all, just like the Christmas tree, Rhapsody Street Kids is boring. Like I said, most of the movie is just stuff happening with almost no rhyme or reason, and the atrocious animation can only keep me entertained for so long. And we don't even have silly, funny, terrible voice acting this time. Like, the voice acting is competent enough because of its amazing talent, so I can't even get any enjoyment out of that. Oh, and get this! The jokers who made this movie were planning to turn Rhapsody Street Kids into a series. The end of the movie teases Rhapsody Street Kids: A Bunny's Tale, but as we can all see, that never got made, and thank God, it didn't. They did make Wolf Tracer's Dinosaur Island, another abomination that happens to have Mark Hamill in it somehow, and yeah, it's just as horrendous. It doesn't even have glitchy grandma gibberish in it. What am I supposed to do with it? Whatever. On to the next entry.
Shut that door.
Oh boy. We have now crossed the threshold where the movie stopped being merely insufferable and become unwatchable. And Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas is most certainly that. If you don't know who Kirk Cameron is, you are a very fortunate person, and I advise you to stop watching the video now. You know those characters whose sole purpose for existing is to tell everybody you're wrong whenever they do anything? Kirk Cameron is that character, but in real life. He plays himself in this movie, and his role is to just sort of say exposition and deliver painfully forced lessons to the other characters. Our main character, Christian, is played by the director, writer, and producer of the movie, and he isn't even 100% as entertaining to watch as Tommy Wiseau, so that sucks. Christian is concerned that Christmas is being too over-commercialized and has strayed too far from its Christian roots, namely with stuff like Santa Claus and the Christmas tree. And Kirk Cameron tells him it's all okay because apparently it all ties into the Bible or something like that, I don't know. Did you get that? Because I just summarized the entire movie! I'm serious, most of this is just Christian and Kirk Cameron sitting in a car talking to each other with random cuts to other stuff, and it's just the most boring thing in the world. Like, Christian's concerns are honestly fairly reasonable. Like, I completely understand where he's coming from, especially the, the over-commercialization stuff. But Kirk Cameron just says, no, you're wrong, to basically everything, because somehow there's stuff relating to it in the Bible? What? And Christian just kind of goes along with it. I understand Saving Christmas is made for a very specific audience that I am absolutely not a part of, but even then, you should at least make your movie entertaining to watch, and not the most padded out thing ever. And even if this is, made for just a select demographic of Kirk Cameron's Facebook followers, why in the world is there a 4-minute segment at the beginning where Kirk Cameron just vomits out the incredibly botched moral of the story before the story starts? The only kind of interesting thing here is Kirk Cameron's version of the St. Nicholas story where he beats the crap out of some guy, but even that's ruined by the horrible editing. Really, the single biggest problem here is that just like the last two entries, Saving Christmas is boring. In fact, it might be the most boring movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, I was having trouble staying awake because of how dull it was, and I've never had that happen to me before. Even if the messages weren't completely nonsensical from any standpoint, how the hell can anyone sit through this movie when nothing is happening? I mean, yeah, the acting's bad, the editing is terrible, and I'm pretty sure the script must have been at least partially improvised through the awkward-as-hell deliveries, but I can barely concentrate on that stuff when I'm struggling not to fall asleep. Their Worst Picture Razzie win was very much deserved here. If you're interested for whatever ungodly reason, Saving Christmas is up on YouTube for free. The only thing you have to lose is your will to stay awake. Maybe Kirk Cameron actually made this movie as a cure for insomnia, and he's secretly a mad genius. Nah, probably not. And now you know why this is the top 12 worst holiday movies and not the top 12 worst Christmas movies. Oh yes, I'm aware that 8 Crazy Nights is a lot more competently made than the schlock we've seen in the past several entries, but I think this placement here is justified. I hate this movie. It's one of the worst animated movies ever made that isn't a bootleg ripoff, and it's one of the worst things Adam Sandler has ever put his name on, and considering the absolute garbage he's been in, that's saying a hell of a lot. I suppose I should start by talking about the film's one redeeming quality, the animation. The previous 3 animated movies on this list all look grotesque and horrid, but not 8 Crazy Nights. This movie has good animation, most of the time, done by the same studio behind The Iron Giant. And yet, I actually think this works against the film, because the Iron Giant-esque visuals completely clash with the tone in a way that I do not think was intentional. How am I supposed to enjoy the pretty color palette and fluid movement if I hate everything that happens in these scenes? Oh yeah, and I do mean everything. Let's break it all down. Adam Sandler plays Davey, a terrible person who is arrested for not paying Rob Schneider racist stereotype number 23 for a meal, so now he has to live with an elderly basketball coach named Whitey, voiced by... oh gee, who do you think? Sandler actually does triple duty here, voicing Davy, Whitey, and Whitey's sister Eleanor. And it's just as aggravating to listen to as you would expect. Whitey is like the only kind of likable character in the movie since he takes Davy in and genuinely tries to help him turn his life around. But his voice is just so annoying to listen to that you want to strangle him every time he opens his mouth. And as for Davy, well, you're not going to believe this, but he is somehow even worse than Jake from I'll Be Home for Christmas. At least with Jake, you can make the argument that he's a total dumbass who doesn't think before he acts. Davy knowingly commits crimes and acts like a total jerk to everybody just because he can. And, you know, that might be okay in another movie. There are plenty of works out there with despicable main characters that the audience can enjoy watching, or at least love hating. But Davy isn't a character the audience is supposed to hate, because like the movie, out of nowhere, decides to give him a tragic backstory where his parents died when he was a kid. As if that's supposed to justify him being the worst person ever. Oh, and as for the humor? Well, I struggle to even call it humor. This is some of the most juvenile stuff I've ever seen. Like the scene where Whitey gets stuck in a porta potty and Davy shoves him down a hill and then freezes him to the crap for the reindeer to lick him out. Yeah, that's a thing that happens in this movie, is the worst example. Other things like Davy humping a car and needlessly insulting this overweight kid, and the stuff with all the product placements come to life. Yeah, that happens too. That stuff has me reaching for the nearest sharp object. The other bad comedies here just made me groan, but the humor, in the biggest air quotes possible, of 8 Crazy Nights is positively excruciating. And that's why the pretty animation doesn't work, because the dissonance between the visuals and comedy doesn't add to either, it only subtracts. If 8 Crazy Nights had Family Guy-esque visuals, I mean, I'd still hate it, but at least it would fit better. Also, for a movie set during Hanukkah, there's not really much of the holiday in the movie, aside from, I guess, the story taking place over 8 nights, hence the title, as well as Davy finding a Hanukkah card from his dead parents and leading everyone in a Jewish dance at the end. I don't know much about Hanukkah, so maybe there's stuff in here that I didn't get, but I was pretty disappointed that there wasn't much more of it. Like, the more I watch this movie, the more I feel sorry for, like, Jewish people that this is one of the only Hanukkah movies out there. Like, you guys deserve so much better movies than this garbage. So basically, if there's anything to take away from this video, please, 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 please make more Hanukkah movies, not only to get good movies made about an important holiday, but also to wipe the stain of 8 Crazy Nights off of it. And we haven't even reached the bottom of the barrel for holiday movies yet. That comes tomorrow. Jack Frost, the 1998 film. So, a guy dies in a car crash, but because his harmonica is magic, his son can bring him back to life as a snowman? What? That's honestly all I remember from this movie, which is why it's not on the list. Grandma got run over by a reindeer. Gotta be honest, this special's pretty charming for how terrible it is. I mean, it's stupid. Like, none of it makes any sense. Grandma gets run over by the reindeer, like, halfway through, and then the rest of it's basically a court case. What? But, you know, it's kind of funny for what it is. I'm pretty sure a lot of you just remember this just for Cousin Mel. Elf Bowling, the movie. This is based on a computer game where Santa rolls a bowling ball over a bunch of elves. Make it into a movie, sure. It has Tom Kenny as Santa's brother Dingle, and it's a musical, and the songs suck. And also there's a bunch of really weird innuendos. Huh? Why? But you know, it's not the worst thing ever. The live-action How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Yeah, I know a lot of people in my age group love this movie, but I've never liked it. I think it looks ugly. I think the Who's are way too unlikable. I think give the Grinch a backstory for some reason. Why? It takes forever for the actual Grinch plot to kick in. It all just feels like, what's the point? That being said, Jim Carrey does a pretty good job as the Grinch. Like, that makeup, like, honestly looks amazing. So it's not really the worst thing ever. And you know what? Sure, I'll throw the Illumination Grinch movie in here. This one has the opposite problem. While the live action one is insane, this one's just really boring. It's just like all the other Illumination movies. It's just safe, bland, predictable, made for small children and their moms. Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. I know, like, this is often considered one of the worst films ever made, but honestly, you know, I do find it kind of charming in its stupid terribleness. I'll be wrong, it's not good at all. It's like, what, Santa Claus, like, gets kidnapped by the Martians, so the title is completely wrong, because they want to, like, show their kids what Christmas is like, because the Martian children are, like, actual children? Okay. And Christmas in New York. I forgot this movie existed before recording almost all of these scripts, so, consider this like an honorary number 11. This probably would have made it on the list if I had remembered it existed. It's completely insane, and I kind of love it for that. Anyway, whatever, on to number 1. In the words of the late great Roger Ebert, from what dark night of the soul emerged the wretched idea for the Nutcracker in 3D? Good question! The Nutcracker in 3D, also known as The Nutcracker The Untold Story, is not only the absolute worst holiday movie of all time, it's a contender for being one of the worst movies ever made. It's honestly kind of a miracle this exists, because every single decision made here was the wrong one. For starters, the premise of this adaptation, and I'm using that word even more loosely than I did for The Nuttiest Nutcracker, is what if the rats were Nazis? I'm not even joking. For some reason, the rats are Nazis now, and they're led by John Turturro as the Rat King. This idea should have been immediately tossed in the garbage, but somehow a movie was made out of it and hastily converted to 3D because that was all the rage in 2010. I never saw it in 3D, and I'm very thankful because this movie is already painful to watch in 2D. The titular Nutcracker himself looks horrible, both as a special effect and to the eyes. I'm pretty sure his dead-eye stare was responsible for a lot of kids' nightmares, assuming any kids actually went to see the movie because it was such a huge financial failure. Also, he's voiced in Nutcracker form by Moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter, but then he's played by an actual boy when he's turned into a person. So why not just have the boy play both versions? Oh, whatever, this is small potatoes compared to everything else. The Nutcracker 3D, both in 3D and 2D, looks absolutely hideous. Not even in a hilariously incompetent way like Rhapsody Street Kids. There's less color here than in Crimes of Grindelwald. Not a single shot looks remotely grand or enchanting for something based on the Nutcracker, and all the characters who aren't just regular people look disgusting. The rats in their humanoid forms look like the Who's from the live-action Grinch movie, except somehow even worse, and the less said about the Rat King's mother, the better. The performances are terrible across the board. Everybody looks so uncomfortable and awkward. Like, half of them are about to pass out once the shot is over. Like, a lot of them, I can tell, like, after every take, they just ask the director, are we really doing this? Is this really what we're doing? Also, Nathan Lane plays Albert Einstein for some reason, and for like 2 or 3 times just starts talking to the audience out of nowhere. You'd think he'd be the narrator of the film, periodically popping in to explain what's happening, but no, he just breaks the fourth wall a couple times and like that's it. No purpose, he just does it. Like The Nuttiest Nutcracker, the actual plot of the Nutcracker is kinda there, but it's buried underneath a ton of crap, and this time there's no Jim Belushi or Cam Clark to save us. The main story here is that the Rat King and his Ratsy regime have taken over the Nutcracker's kingdom, and he's trying to get it back. That's it. The effects are atrocious. They look like they jumped out of the late 90s. Half of them look like they're made out of rubber, including the wooden Nutcracker, and they lead to positively nightmarish looking imagery. Oh, and also the score for the ballet has been turned into lyrical musical numbers for reasons I can't even begin to fathom. I mean, if they were good, I wouldn't really care much, but these songs are horrible. Like, sung horribly, written horribly, performed horribly, just horrible across the board garbage. But let's get into what you really want to hear about. How far does the movie go with the whole "the rats are Nazis" stick? The answer is way, 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 way too far. Other movies like Raiders of the Lost Ark have Nazis, but they really don't go far beyond the "Nazis are bad, go kill them." The Nutcracker 3D decides that it wants to be Schindler's List, but terrible, as we have this very long drawn-out scene where the Ratsies are rounding up groups of people near this, like, burning smoke factory and forcing the children to throw their toys, which the movie previously established are all living things, by the way, into a pile in the middle of the road where they burn them. Oh yeah, That's totally not completely tasteless in any way whatsoever. And then the Rat King decides to like jump into the middle of the crowd during this random musical number and start snapping pictures of the crying children. I'm sorry, what the actual hell is wrong with this movie? And another thing, this movie set in 1920s Vienna, so like why are the rats Nazis in the first place? Like, what's the point? Like, every movie on this list has been painful to some degree. The Nutcracker 3D crosses the line from horrendous to flat out offensive. And you know, maybe I could be a little nicer to the movie if there was like a point to all this. You know, if the rats being Nazis actually tied into anything in the story that like our main character Mary is like going through. But no, they're just Nazis for the sake of being Nazis because Nazis are bad. Except they want to do the Schindler's List imagery because I don't know. I don't know. Like the fact that everything else in this movie is horrible, from the acting to the pacing to the songs to the effects to the cinematography, would already make this like top 3 worst holiday movies of all time. But the sheer incompetence and lack of tact in their handling of such horrible imagery is the ultimate nail in the coffin. Who the hell would want to watch a Nutcracker film with Holocaust imagery anyway? Clearly nobody, since the movie was universally panned by critics and audiences alike and flopped hard at the box office. But like, this idea had to come from somewhere. Like, the director apparently said that this movie was his dream project that he had been working to get made for over 20 years. And if that's the case, I honestly just feel really sorry for him. The Nutcracker 3D and Saving Christmas are the only films in this list to score a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, and, well, I can't say I'm surprised. Quite frankly, the Nutcracker 3D should have a negative score if possible. When you're making the nuttiest Nutcracker look like a more entertaining and faithful adaptation of the Nutcracker, you know you've screwed up big time. In case my rambling hasn't convinced you what I think, I hate this movie. I hate this movie. This is one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life, with no redeeming qualities whatsoever, not even a shred of one. The only reason to ever watch this rotting trash heap is to find out what you should never ever do when making a movie. Good riddance. And there you go. Those are the top 12 worst holiday movies I've ever seen. In my opinion, of course. What did you think? Do you agree with my choices? Do you actually like some of these movies? If you do, let me know what you liked about them below. I genuinely want to know, like, if there's something in there that I missed, like, or if any of these movies have more merit to them than I give them credit for. Maybe there's something here that you think is actually worse and deserves to be on here. I'll see you with whatever I put out next. Bye.